Hello, in today's episode, we're back with Suzerain in the Kingdom of Rizia with Ramis Torres. I don't know what I'm saying, but yeah, we're going. Yes, we got out all the people that are lame that don't like good content. They left the video already, but yeah, Monkiz. We're going with our. We're gonna. This is how you start a video, I know. Call with Prime Minister Alvarez. It had been a week since my meeting with Duke Reinhard in Pales. The Alliance of Nations had accepted a request to arbitrate ownership of the Aris gas field. Preliminary hearings were beginning soon. In the meantime, Lesbian Prime Minister Patricio Alvarez had contacted Lorinto asking to speak with me. I was spending the week at the palace in Moncriz, Lorinto. I just wanted to... Yeah, they're unfriendly with me. They're a member of ATO. Yeah, they're our, like, our northern neighbor, but we don't have any land connections. Yeah, just re-getting my vibe on them, getting the situation more together. I was spending the week at my palace in Moncriz, Lorinto, visited to brief me ahead of the phone call. He stepped in front of my desk and bowed. Good afternoon, Your Majesty. I trust you're well, Mr. Escobil. Well enough, though I must say I'm worried by the increasing tensions in southern Recopa. Our Umbergian allies have expressed their support for a naval blockade as expected. They are sure to be of use during the AN arbitration process. Our nation of Morella has yet to support or denounce us. The same goes for Dirdia. Meanwhile, my requests for Welland to give us an updated timeline and Zeal handover have been repeatedly ignored. Isn't there anything we can do? Principal can't keep holding on to Zeal forever. He smoothed one of the ends of his mustache. I have filed a complaint with the Alliance of Nations. Presumably they will be addressed during the upcoming South Maricopa session. For now, though, we have Prime Minister Alvarez to worry about. Why do you think he's calling? Well, he can't be happy that the AN arbitration is delaying Lesbia's access to the Aurelius gas field. His country's energy demands have skyrocketed since joining ATO after the rumors of massive new infrastructure investments. Naturally involving the Prime Minister's own construction company, Alvarez Industries. Did my father ever talk to him? No. His Majesty Velero died mere months after Alvarez won the 1949 election. He may have sent his obligatory congratulations in private, though. He referred to the young man as the Viper in a diaper. I like that. How trustworthy is he? Considering the only reason he entered politics was to avoid going to jail. No charge has successfully been leveled against him, but in my own opinion, he can only be trusted to protect his own interests. I've heard he's an alcoholic. Rare's the world leader who doesn't enjoy a little drink on the job, or a big one. But no, Alvarez has apparently acknowledged his problem and entered a rehabilitation program. He's as sober as an archpriestess, for now. That'll be all. I'm ready for the phone call. Very good, Your Majesty. I'll meet you afterwards for a debriefing. An assistant brought in the blue telephone that was used for calls with the head of state. At 3:01 p.m. it rang. Good afternoon, King Ramis. This is Patricio Alvarez. This is His Majesty, Ramis Torres, ruler of Rizia, commander of the Royal Rizian Armed Forces, Duke of Valquez, and protector of the Resident Empire. Quite the mouthful. May your reign be as long as your titles. That was a good one. That was a good one. You must have some idea why I'm calling. I suspect the reason involves Pales. Your suspicions are correct. I heard him sigh on the other end of the line. Here I am about to land the gas deal of a lifetime, and then my business partner calls me up and tells me I have to wait for an arbitration. I'm only observing protocol. Mr. Alvarez, you would do the same if I laid claim to one of Lespia's resources. It is in your resource, Your Majesty. My legal counsel is a crystal clear case for Pelesian ownership of the gas field. You can talk about Andor rules all you want, but in the end it's going to come down to your word versus ours. And do you think has more sway with the Alliance of Nations? If you want Rizia to give up its claim on the field, you're going to have to present one hell of a counteroffer. As it happens, I do have a proposition that might interest you. No promises, but I'm listening. I've been following the situation with zeal. It seems like you could use help with this debacle. What debacle? Our countries have an agreement. So Mr. Smollett has promised to return to Sedgwick despite the recent incidents. Not in so many words. He's a slippery man, Smollett. You must get your territory back unless you won't get your territory back unless you tighten your grip on him. Are you offering to intervene, Mr. Prime Minister? Of course, Lesbia can't do that. We can provide some assistance from the guidelines by speaking up on your behalf at the upcoming AN session, for example. That's it? You'd expect us to give up our claim on the gas field for that little? It's more than you'll get if you continue on the arbitration path. Actually, I'll be extra generous. Cede the Aurelius field to Pales, and in addition to the assistance I promised, we'll sell you 1/4 of the exploration rights. You wouldn't be arguing if you thought you had a airtight case. I'm trying to make sure we both get something out of this, Your Majesty. A certain social club I'm in has taught me the importance of service to others. You may be sober, but I don't believe a second that you've changed your ways. You don't have to believe me. All you have to do is say yes. So if we wanted to accept this deal, we'd get +1 energy per turn, -1 budget per turn, -2 no, that seems like an awful trade deal. I appreciate your considerations, but win or lose, I want to see how the arbitration plays out. Fair enough, Your Majesty. I'll see you in Kairut. A pleasure speaking with you, Mr. Prime Minister. We said our goodbyes and hung up. Ugh, what an idiot. I hope we destroy him. I sat there for a while, wondering what I had gotten myself into. Were Duke Reinhardt and Prime Minister Alvarez right? Was I doomed to lose this battle? Potentially. Honestly, that's definitely a possibility. Pale sends navy to Aurelius Fields. Following a refusal to withdraw the Rizian Navy from the borders of the Aurelius gas field, Duke Reinhardt has sent an equal number of Pelesian naval reinforcements to patrol the vicinity. Our deployed officials warn of potential escalation. Hey, if it happens, it happens. Rizian Navy asserts sovereign rights to new gas field. As a response to the Grand Duchy of Pale's audacious attempt to claim the newly discovered Aurelius gas field without our kingdom's agreement, a number of ships from the Rizian Royal Navy have been deployed to surround the field and defend Rizia's sovereign rights to this resource. This move has garnered significant support from the Rizian nationwide and serves as a firm commitment to our country's interests and regional stability. This decision, announced by His Majesty King Ramus, has offered a clear signal to Pales about Rizia's determination to defend its territorial rights. The blockade is seen as a protective measure, ensuring Rizia's interest while ownership is being decided. OMEC reports decline in East Mercopan economic integration. The Organization for Mercopan Economic Development has published a worrying report indicating a 3.5% decline in trade volumes across East Mercopa. Originally projected at 4% growth in regional trade, OMEC's revised figures now reflect the tangible effects of disrupted supply lines and geopolitical instability, with East Mercopan economic integration rate slowing to a mere 1.2%, down from the 2.5% growth seen last year. OMEC's analysis underscores the heightened challenges that regional economies face as they navigate through a landscape marked by uncertainty and fluctuating economic alliances. The Guild of Royal Alliances tackling Grace trade decline. There's significant reduction in Grace nations. Oh, wait. I only read the first one. There were 4. Let's actually read the rest first, then we'll go figure that out. Arcacia extends aid to impoverished free cities. Responding to a plea from the divine speaker Andre, Arcacia has embarked on a foreign aid mission to the economically beleaguered Holy Federation of Free Cities, earmarking substantial resources for food security and industrial aid. The move, which sees the provision of critical textile machinery, is a calculated attempt to alleviate the Federation's economic distress, while subtly counteracting the influence of neighboring powers, Dirtia and Morella. Arcacia's assistance is poised to not only address the immediate humanitarian needs, but also to forge a strategic ally in a region fraught with economic uncertainty and political maneuvering. All eyes on South Marcopa at upcoming AN session. The upcoming session of the Alliance of Nations, AN, is setting an unprecedented course by dedicating a day agenda exclusively to the issue of the 6 countries of South Marcopa. This dedicated focus represents a significant opportunity for the international community to engage with the region's unique challenges and potentials. Scheduled for later this month, the session underscores the growing recognition of South Marcopa's strategic importance and its increasingly central role in global geopolitical dynamics, particularly thanks to its wealth of natural resources such as gold, oil, and gas. At the same time, AN President Nines hopes to diffuse the tensions that have been simmering between the nations of Rizia, Wellens, Pales, Lesbia, Morella, and Dirtia. The AN session will provide a crucial platform for multilateral dialogues and conflict resolution. Oh. Gas field standoff, Rizia sends navy to Pelesian waters. A potentially violent gas dispute is brewing between the nations of Rizia and Pales. After Grand Duchy staked a claim on Aurelis, a large undersea natural gas field located roughly between the two countries, the Rizian government opted for a military response, sending naval reinforcements blocked the field before the Pelesians could begin exploratory drilling. There's obviously been no love lost between the Kingdom of Rizia and the Grand Duchy Pales since the former's failed campaign to retake the latter by military force 30 years ago. We fear it will not take much to rekindle old tensions. Expect further updates as the situation develops. Recent reports indicate a troubling decrease in trade volume with Grace, a key economic organization. The downturn is impacting the Treasury, necessitating immediate and effective responses. Options include renegotiating trade agreements, exploring alternative trade partners, or investing in domestic industries to reduce reliance. Grace going from +2 to +1 is so sucky for me. Like, we already aren't doing great because of that higher welfare. I mean, sure, it's nice. It's allowing our people to have, good living standards and all that. Breezy will find new and better alternatives. Woo. Grace condemns trade decline. Grace is concerned with the recent downturn in trade with the Kingdom of Rizia. We are actively seeking to identify the cause of the decline and are dedicated to implementing measures to rectify the situation. Our aim is to restore and elevate our trade relationship with Rizia, reinforcing our commitment to economic cooperation and mutual success. Well, then trade with me. Figure it out. Rumberg tries to reassure Grace members. The Rumbergian Crown sent out a communique to all Grace members, assuring that the recent decrease in trade volume is temporary, and the member states of the organization should not worry and continue to trade as usual. Ooh, we got 2 things we can do. Let's do the evening conversation with King Mother Estella first. It was the night before my trip to Kairat for the Alliance of Nations meeting. I just finished some last-minute preparations by study. I carefully made my way back towards the palace residential wing. So this canonically probably happens after that, because, it is below it. But I kind of wanted to do this one first, so, meh, whatever. It was later than I realized. The halls were dead silent, illuminated only by weak shafts of moonlight through the windows. Grand Wiseman Ignatian quarters were on the ground floor. I saw light coming out of the keyhole. Let's peer. I carefully bent down and looked inside. Sal was rocking back and forth in his armchair, his eyes closed. He seemed to be mouthing a prayer. Just before the stairs was the entrance to Vina's room. Through the door, I caught the faint strains of her voice. I pressed my ear against the door to hear better. Oh, don't be so blue. Honestly, what were you expecting? I don't know. I don't know why I started singing. Oh, don't be so blue. Honestly, what were you expecting? No, I won't talk to him. He's in Cairo the next few days anyways. Yes, my love, we'll speak very soon. There was a clunk as she hung up the phone. I moved away from the door and kept walking. I reached the top floor, across the hall from my bedchamber. The Queen Mother's door was open. Yeah. Moving on. I looked in. My mother was smoking out on her balcony, her back turned towards me. Can't sleep? She looked startled for a moment, then smiled. Don't worry about me, darling. You should be resting yourself. All set for tomorrow? Did Father tell you anything about these AN sessions? Oh, you know, he was never a diplomat. In fact, I'm not sure he even attended after the Zeal agreement. Poor Mr. Escapol went alone in his stead. You're planning on dressing the elephant in the chamber, aren't you? Of course I am. Wellen must be forced to honor the Zeal handover deadline. That's the pachyderm in question, yes? We need our land back, no matter what kind of announcement Victor Smollett has up his sleeve. How do we know he's gonna make an announcement? My whisper networks aren't what they used to be, but wives still talk. Any advice for how to act, then? I just say, don't stoop to his level. Make him look like the tyrant he is. Speaking of which, how is that bird of prey on your council proceeding with their investigation? These things takes a while, you know? I do hope the investigators turn up something we can use. I shudder to think what might happen if the handover deadlines arrive before a culprit is found. If this doesn't work, we'll try something else, but Zil will be ours. Yes, I know. Excuse my impatience. She stubbed her cigarette out on the balcony railing and sighed. Well, it's about time I get some rest. Wait, I had one more thing to ask. I wanted to ask about Vina. What about her, princess? Did she get up to anything while I was in Pales? As far as I could tell, she spent a lot of time holed up in her room. Although, of course, I've heard the same rumors as you have. I think they're more than just rumors. Then you have a relationship to approve of, or not. She flicked a bit of ash from her cigarette off the balcony. I'll tell you this much. The last thing you want to do is forbid her from seeing him. I would never do that. She's allowed to love whomever she wants. But after everything the Suzerains did to you, to us, royal marriages are a balancing act, my dear. You can satisfy the betrothals or the country, but almost never both. Almost. You were lucky for a while, Ramus. This particular match would satisfy your daughter very much. It would also put House Suzerain dangerously close to the throne. It's up to you whether Vina's happiness is worth that. Of course it is, Mother. How could you even ask that? Then you'll have to find a way to make it to work to your advantage. You could use the pairing to keep a close eye on the opposition, assuming Vina trusts you enough to pass along information about her paramour's family. Of course she trusts me. Or there's one other thing you could do. You send the princess on a nice, relaxing trip abroad. Nothing cures love sickness like a change of scenery. Can't do that. She's a valuable member of my council. It's just a thought. Feel free to ignore it. She yawned theatrically. And with that, it's time to turn in. Wish me luck for tomorrow. I know you won't need it. I wished her good night and left the room. I heard her light click off. I returned to my quarters to see Titus take his post outside my door. I wondered how long he'd been shadowing me for. In my room, Papal had already packed my suitcase and turned the bed down. I climbed into bed and was too distracted by thoughts of the day ahead to sleep. And then let's also do our visiting the House of Delegates. I walked down the palm tree-lined path that connected Pale's Resna to the nearby House of Delegates. In contrast to the ornate palace, the house was essentially a plain concrete box. Its stripped-down appearance reflected its hurried construction. The only adornment was a phrase chiseled above the entrance as Populat Rizia to the Rizian people. I made my way down the hall to the meeting room. Alright, I gotta try to be diplomatic. Especially with how things are going between them, I need to find some common ground. Hugo rose to greet me as I entered the empty chamber. We took our seats atop the raised wooden platform in the center of the room. Though I still can't approve of what they're talking about today specifically. I forgot. I just remembered I made that agreement to not mess with his company. Directly below the platform were two podiums, one for each speaker. Wooden benches for the delegates were arranged in a circle around us. Welcome, Your Majesty. Good morning, Your Grace. The delegates will be on their best behavior while with you here today. The Suzerain boy might even keep his speeches under a half hour. Based on what I saw in Salabis, I doubt it. Speech there seemed to have done a number on your daughter. Rebuilding relations with House Suzerain is a sound strategy. We mustn't allow them to get too close to the throne. The clock struck 10, and the delegates filled in. Each wore Satan sash in the traditional color of his or her province, red for Rizia Imperia, blue for Maquiz, and yellow for Cardis Monteclair, and green for Brennes. Next came the speakers. House leader, Dardi de Rava, walked out in a well-tailored crimson suit. She had a brisk gait and impeccable posture. The other delegates practically held their breath as they waited for her to take her place. You said she's a loyalist? Quite right. In all of the sessions I've attended, she has never made a decision that didn't align with the interests of House Taurus. I noted the approving tone in his voice as he spoke of her. Next came Suzerain, clad in a black suit with forest green silk tie. He waved to his fellow delegates, then to me. I'll wave back to him. I returned his wave. He smiled as he took his place. Daria picked up a golden bell and rang it at once. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to call this meeting of the House of Delegates in order. Today we are humbled by the presence of His Majesty, King Ramus. Long may he reign. A few cries of "Long may he reign" echoed across the delegates, particularly those in red and blue sashes. It is an honor to be here, Madam Speaker. She smiled and continued. The Rizian People's Party has prepared a proposal for Mr. Suzerain will submit before the delegates and His Majesty. The delegates will vote on whether to accept it or not. This is a non-binding recommendation. The ultimate authority rests with the King and the Royal Council. She flipped open a binder. Today's session is regarding the Rizian Workers' Protection Act. Mr. Suzerain, would you like to explain more? Gladly, Madam Speaker. The past 2 decades have been a marked increase in workplace accidents, particularly in the sectors of mining and manufacturing. The experts I've consulted with have pinpointed several factors responsible for the rise. Chief among them a shortage of skilled labor and growing pressure from our primary trading partner. Simply put, our corporations have been cutting corners at the expense of human health and safety. Our industry's continued reliance on guest workers who are paid and trained less than their native Rizian counterparts is exacerbating the problem. Now a cross-industry coalition of employees and guest workers has bravely approached the Rizian People's Party with a list of requests to convey to our fellow delegates as well as His Majesty. Among these are mandatory workplace safety training, upgraded protective equipment, benefits for those injured on the job, and regular site inspections by state authorities, and of course physical penalties for corporations that fail to meet these requirements. Madam Speaker, Your Majesty, surely you agree on the urgency of this proposal. Rizia's great industries will not flourish as long as their workers are suffering. I looked at Hugo. So Rusty was right. His miners found a way to take their grievances to me. Mr. Montoro will be expecting to make good on your promise to him. I suddenly realized the hall had gone quiet. Shall I continue? Mr. Suzerain, I would like to know how Rizia is to pay for these policies. He smiled patiently. They would be paid for in equal measure by the government and the corporations in question. Our country still has a budget surplus, Your Majesty. What is that wealth for, if not to improve the lives of our citizens? We do have a budget surplus, but it's gotten kind of small recently, to be honest. I've already approved higher welfare expenditures, and that's eating into the budget. I don't know if I can do welfare expenditures and worker help, you know? I think I'll have to choose one or the other, and I already chose one, so, too bad. Should have asked me earlier. Besides, a healthy worker is a protective worker. This small investment will pay off tenfold in the long run, for us and for our economy. Daria sharply knocked on her podium. All eyes turned to her. Forgive me, Your Majesty, but I cannot let my opponent continue with these lies. Menace reluctantly took a step back. Of course my party believes that workers' safety is paramount, but the regulations that have been suggested today amount to overkill. It is up to the individual corporation to take responsibility for reducing accidents. Shift that responsibility to the government will do nothing to protect those at risk. It will, however, stifle our country's economic growth and decrease our viability in the global arena. If our businesses are to remain competitive, it is wiser to incentivize good safety practices than to punish their absence. I must object, Madam Speaker. Companies such as Rizia Royal Gold and Rizia Oil and Gas will never voluntarily undertake the measures we're describing. Daria brushed off the comment. My point stands. With tensions rising in both our north and south, we simply cannot afford an extravagance of type Mr. Suzerain is proposing. Our focus should be on achieving better diplomatic outcomes with our neighbors, not meddling in the affairs of our corporations. From near the front door came the sound of a single person applauding. I looked towards the source. Rusty was leaning against the wall, dressed in his usual plaid. He nodded at me as he kept clapping. I turned towards Hugo again. You didn't tell me that a special guest would be joining us today. Hugo stared in Rusty's direction, expressionless. I was not informed. Unfortunately, these sessions are open to the public, so we cannot ask him to leave without reason. In fact, his presence could be useful in pressuring the Suzerain boy to stand down with his demands. Rusty had stopped clapping now. He was scrutinizing me closely, a gleam in his eyes. How nice of you to join us, Mr. Montoro. Do you have any words on the topic at hand? Name's Rusty, and as a matter of fact, I do. Rusty ambled down the aisle of the chamber. He came to a stop between the two speaker podiums. Now, I won't take up too much of your time. The Baroness summed things up pretty well. His Majesty here has also had the privilege of hearing my personal thoughts on the subject. He looked at me and winked. He was very receptive to ideas at the time, but he might have forgotten a key point or two. Now, the Rizian Standard Dictionary defines gold as a yellow precious metal used in jewelry, and to no guarantee the value of currencies. I stayed silent as he continued. But in Rizia, it's so much more than that. Commoners, you've never even touched ducat, still feel proud to live on shores of gold as we sing. But our shores would never have been gold in the first place if our monarchs hadn't listened to the naysayers like Mr. Suzerain here. Your Majesty, your predecessors knew that there can be no prosperity without hard work. Our gritty determination today fills the nation's coffers tomorrow. But where does that grit go when the government's got our hands tied? How can we function as a company when our few folks don't trust us to take care of our own people? If I may ask, sir, how exactly would our proposal tie your hands? What does the country stand to lose? Don't play dumb, kid. Implementing all your suggestions would cost us, and you, millions. You'd have no choice but to shift more of your production from Rizia to the international trade zone. So changing our standards within the country will lead to more workers being exploited outside it. However bad you think the conditions are here, Your Majesty, they're worse over there. How is that a justification? The people who produce Rizia's wealth should be treated with dignity, whether inside or outside the nation. And Mr. Montoro could easily afford the measures I'm suggesting if he and his fellow executive forwent a fraction of their salary. True. Anyways, Rusty started laughing. Excuse me? You're sitting on a fortune just because you happen to have the right last name. You want me to give up the money I worked for? Please ignore the opposition leader. No one is asking anyone to give up their money. Yes, the subject of noble wealth is completely out of the preview of today's session. Mr. Montoro, would you and Rizia's other business owners be willing to undergo voluntary measures to increase workplace safety in lieu of the drastic actions Mr. Suzerain is proposing? Rusty grinned toothily. Of course we would, as long as we're allowed to keep doing what we do best. He stroked his chin, Fox thoughtfully. Come to think of it, though, I won't presume to speak up for the other guys. I'm the only one who cared enough to show up today, right? So here's another thought. You regulate factories and energy plants however you want, but maybe, just maybe, you think about making an exception for old Rusty. He winked at me again. Manus drew a hand across his brow. So are you trying to get say that you're okay with it as long as I make you an exception? Is that what you're telling me? We can't make any exceptions. The maleficence of Rizia royal gold was that what inspired this proposal in the first place. Your proposal was never going to be accepted entirely, Mr. Suzerain. Compromise is part of the political process. This was a losing battle to begin with, Your Majesty. Hugo calmly spoke up. The time for vote is drawing close. To be clear, Mr. Suzerain, do you not wish to amend your proposal to take into account Mr. Montoro's comments? I do not, Your Grace. Then you have the floor, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Your Grace. As a reminder to you and His Majesty, this vote serves as a non-binding agreement. The King and the Council may agree or disagree at will. All those in favor of the RPP's workers' safety proposal, raise your hands. About a quarter of the delegates, mostly those with green sashes, put their hands in the air. Those in favor of encouraging companies to develop and enforce their own safety protocols on a voluntary basis. The rest of the delegates, an overwhelming majority, raised their hands. Rusty smiled triumphantly. The delegates have an official recommendation. Rather than introduce sweeping and expensive labor reforms, Rizia should entrust the matter of safety to its business owners. Hugo nodded. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The final decision is now in the hands of His Majesty, King Ramus. We accept or overrule the delegates' recommendation. Rusty, do you have any closing arguments? I surely do not, Your Majesty. It seems to me like the decision you have to make is no decision at all. You could even walk out of the room right now and let your legislative system do the rest. But you're a man of action. I know you want the final say, so by all means, go on and say it. Have you said all you wanted to say, Mr. Suzerain? I've stated my case, Your Majesty, but I will say this. I don't expect you to side with the RPP, but I implore you not to let partisanship or past grudges get in the way of Rizia's well-being. I would not be putting myself at the mercy of the delegates and the king if I did not believe this was a cause worth fighting for. Thank you for listening. I'd like to confer with my Grand Vizier. Of course. We turned away from the delegates, spoke in low voices. What do you think of Rusty's exception idea? Could I reintroduce that? You're the king. Of course you can. It would save the kingdom money, and it would send Mr. Montoro over the moon. But of course it would signal to everyone else you're in his pocket. Here's what I've decided. Everyone in the room went silent as they awaited my next word. So I would still lose budget by doing that. So I could either side with the delegate majority, the workplace safety proposal from Rizia People's Party shall not be undertaken. I overrule the recommendations, which cost me 1 budget per turn. I mean, here's the thing, even if I want to do that, I don't have the budget surplus to keep up that. I'm getting +2 right now. I don't need to make that +1. Sorry, I don't even care. And then also, after listening to compelling arguments from Mr. Suzerain and Mr. Montoro, I hereby order the implementation of the RPP proposal, with the admit that the mining industry will be exempt from the new regulations. It's definitely going to be either that or that. I'm just going to keep exactly to my word. I side with the delegate majority. The workplace safety proposal of the Rizia People's Party shall not be undertaken. Damn straight, Your Majesty. My uncle gave Rusty a withering look. Silence, Mr. Montoro. do not make His Majesty regret his decision. Madam Speaker, let the record show the king has aligned with the House majority. Noted, Your Grace. Doria made a note in her binder, then looked up at me, slightly smiling. Once again, I thank His Majesty for blessing us with his presence today, and Duke Taurus for presiding over this session. An honor, as usual, Madam Speaker. My fellow delegates and esteemed guests, the meeting is now adjourned. Any follow-up questions will be addressed in future sittings. She rang the bell again, and the room began to empty out. As my guards escorted me towards the exit, I noticed Rusty still standing in the hall with his arms folded. Well, I'm a man of my word, aren't I? And I'm a man of mine, Your Majesty. He reached out to shake my hand, and I suddenly felt the cool of metal against my palm. I reached for my hand and took a closer look at the object he'd given me. My guys dug this up in the midst a while back. Consider it a token of my appreciation. What is it? Heck if I know. Looks pretty old, though, doesn't it? As for that other matter we discussed back at my place, my wards will be in touch with the paperwork. See you real soon. He bowed and strode out the door. Woo! And we got a new collection item. Worstest Medallion. Discovered during preliminary exploration of the Meridian International Trade Zone, this solid gold Worstest Medallion is believed to be one of the oldest relics of the ancient Resonant Empire. This remarkably preserved, intricate religious engravings still carry the same symbolism of hundreds of years ago. Interesting. And then we actually, at any point, can just sign it anyways. Workers' Rights Protection for All Industries RPP proposal. Proposed by the Rizia People's Party, this decree ensures the state commitment to safeguarding workers' rights across all industries. This legislation will enforce fair labor practices, equitable compensation, reasonable working hours, and safe working conditions. This decree displays the kingdom's dedication to social justice and its role in promoting a harmonious and productive work environment for the nation's workforce. So I can actually just be like, okay, now that we've signed our agreement, psych! Rizia Royal Gold stake change. Decide whether to buy an increased stake in the Rizia Royal Gold or sell parts of the government. Yep. In exchange for rejecting the Rizia People's Party's proposal for gold mining regulations, Rusty Montour of the Rizia Royal Gold has given us the opportunity to raise or loyal the stake in the company. We are going to raise stake to 45%. It's going to cost us some stuff now, but I really do need that increased, that increase in our amount we're getting. With a 45% share, the state is a dominant minority stockholder in the Rizia Royal Gold. This significant ownership ensures the national interests are well represented in the company's operation, balancing private enterprise with the governmental influence. Kingdom increases share in RRG. King Ramus has increased the royal stake in Rizia Royal Gold, with monarchy now owning 40% of the profitable company. We can't help but wonder why not more of the pride of Rizia's economy is in the hands of our king, instead of being controlled by some capitalist like Rusty. But this is a vast improvement, an indicator of our king's economic plans for the country. Hegel Keitan's Gomlin trade. Chancellor Hegel of Vaxland, in a deft strategic pivot, is recalibrating the nation's economic ties within the CSP. The CSP by tapering off trade with Gomlin. Hegel is prompting to strengthen ties with other pact members, reflecting a concreted effort to consolidate its economic future within the sphere. This economic shift may serve as a bellwether for internal CSP relations, as Hegel navigates through the intricate web of inter-coalition politics. The realignment speaks volumes about the underlying ideological tensions and the game of economic diplomacy being played out in the Eastern Bloc, potentially signaling a new contentious chapter in the pact. We also have something going on in Marilla. Marilla sends congratulations for taking control of natural resources. When asked during a press conference, Marilla's Prime Minister, Alma Sultana, said she welcomes Rizia's decision to take control over a larger part of Royal Gold Corporation. She reiterated her government's position that countries should be in control of their own natural resources, which should, in her view, would never be owned by either capital nor foreign power. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Hopefully we can build up our relations more. Interesting. I think we'll continue on in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell button. And as always, peace.